Yeah, big time. Number 9. Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Big time. Lot of sun. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Yeah. Big time. Big time. Big time. Big time. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind. Lot of sun, smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Pockets running over with the dollar signs. Try and take it from me. Big time. I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time. Lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try and take it from me, from me, from me, from me. Big time. Number 9. Down in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. The numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you, alongside Scotty Too Hottie back in the Ysn studios. We got Donnie Riccatelli, we got the Ginger Wonder himself, Richie Giuliano joins, and of course, we wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for Chris Sigler. So Chris Sigler with us. I know Anthony Romo will be joining us in just a little bit. Big news coming out of the NE8 today. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, we get to our on this day in sports history, and we've got a couple for you. In 1974, on this day, January 19th, 1974, Notre Dame beats UCLA 71-70 in South Bend, Indiana, to end the Bruins' NCAA record 88-game basketball win streak. Never have we seen anything like that ever since that moment. History buffs, I know, Scotty, you're a history buff. From a standpoint of an 88-game win streak in NCAA basketball, what is that comparable to nowadays?
You're asking me exclusively?
Yes, your name would be Scotty.
My bad. I would say nowadays, 88-game winning streak. I would say nowadays it's probably, that would be comparable. A thing that immediately comes to my mind, I don't think it'll ever be matched, but is like a DiMaggio, his hitting streak, the 56 gamer. That's what immediately came in my mind.
Is there anything today, like if we were to look at today's standards in NCAA basketball, what would that be equivalent to? Because, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the competition is probably a little bit tougher in the NCAA nowadays, at least a little bit more level across the board. So 88 games in a row is probably not going to happen. But what would be a number where you go, I can see that being it? Richie, what do you think? What's that number?
I don't know if I'd say a specific number, but a team that I would kind of compare to that 88 game win streak is UConn women's basketball. And, what they've done over the years and, how many consecutive national championships they have won. There's no more dominant team in NCAA women's basketball than UConn. I mean, that's a staple and, the program you want to get to. So, that's kind of what clicked in my mind immediately when you said 88 games in a row and, the powerhouse of UCLA. I just think UConn women's basketball every single year, year in and year out, doesn't matter who it is, they're going to beat you. I mean, they're just one of the best teams in the country.
Donnie, from your standpoint, is there anything that can match that 88-game winning streak?
No, honestly, and you guys both nailed it with UConn women's basketball and DiMaggio's hitting streak. I could probably say, man, something along the lines of something in football, maybe like who's it? Mater D High School in California, always getting 130 some wins in a row or whatever it was. I mean, it's one of those things where you're not going to see that ever again. I mean, it's right. the competition, like you said, in basketball has gotten much tougher. You'll never see winning streaks like that ever again. I mean, there's too much competitive balance now with everything.
The second on this day in history, guys, I know you probably remember this. Richie, it was probably it definitely was in your younger days. 2002. How old were you?
I would have been 3 years old.
Okay. There was this game called the AFC Divisional Playoff game in 2002 where the tuck rule came into effect with Tom Brady with under 2 minutes to play and the Patriots trailing the Raiders 13-10, driving in a snowstorm. Tom Brady fumbled, but it was ruled an incomplete pass thanks to the tuck rule, which has since been abolished. Patriots end up winning that game 16-13 in overtime, and the dynasty is formed in New England. Is there any other rule that you can think of that has changed the course of history as much as the tuck rule? Scotty?
Any other rule I can think of changing the course of history? Man, that's really a tough one. I would probably say man, I really...
How about defensive pass interference in the NFL where it's just where the ball is? So if you just gun it up in the end zone from 60 yards out and the PI happens in the end zone, the football team gets the ball on the 1 yard line. I'm an advocate for the 15-yard penalty.
I am too.
Yeah, I think it should be too. I think it should be like college, 15 yards. But that's a great one, DJ. I'm trying to think of one, but I'm blanking off the top of my head.
Richie, you have any?
I was going to say the continuation role in basketball. I think that's still up in the air when it comes to the college and NBA level. I mean, NBA is more defined where they give a lot more continuation, but in college, it's a referee and official decision because you really never know the rule. I mean, it could be going up. It could be on the floor, one step up in the air. I mean, you really never know in basketball with the continuation rule. It's almost like a split-second decision that official has to make. And I think that's been a big rule that's been debated over the last couple of years, especially at the college level, because in the NBA level, they have that rule in effect to the players where if they're going up, if the basket falls, it's a bucket and a one. In college, it's kind of the official's decision at the time, whether they count the bucket or an on-the-floor foul.
I like it. Donnie, what rule comes to your mind when you think one that changed the course of history?
Man, one that changed the course of history, I'm not sure about that, but I'm going to piggyback off of Richie a little bit and say the carry rule in basketball because, man, it just seems like these guys are getting away with a lot of that extra stuff anymore, and it's really helped evolve offensively for some of these games. But man, these kids carry the basketball so bad, and it happens at the high school level, it happens at the collegiate level. Pros everywhere they go. It's so weird that what constitutes a carry. I mean, they say you're supposed to have if the ball's below your palm, or vice versa, it's a carry or it isn't a carry. But it just seems like these kids get away with so much anymore.
Yeah, I just thought of it quickly. I just thought of something.
Sure.
I know, DJ, you're not an NBA fan, but correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you used to be able to like hand check like back in the 80s and 90s, even the 70s, and now they took that away. So that really changed the game of basketball a lot.
Siggy's getting messed with, I see.
Yeah, somebody's messing with the lights behind him. Siggy comes back, and we also have Anthony Romo with us. Boys, is there one rule across sports that changed the course of history, the way that the tuck rule has in football? Siggy?
Yeah, I would say it's the contact downfield. Yeah, I don't know if you guys talked about it already, but people, I'm in my early 40s, just a year older than Donnie, and you hear Mel Blount change the rule for the Pittsburgh Steelers late in the 70s, and it changed the face of the game. You used to be able to mug these guys going down the football field, and now you can't barely touch them off the line of scrimmage. So that's one rule that really changed football, in ironically a long time ago to shape it up to what it is today, with the passing attacks that everybody has. So,
Romo, is there one rule that you can think of that changed the way that you view sports, or changed changed the course of sports history?
Don't
Don't
off
laugh
the
at me.
top of my head, I mean, I can't really think of much, but I think that if this rule stays intact in the MLB of when the game goes to extra innings, having runners start on second base, I think that'll really change the course of how the game will be played for years to come.
That's a great.
Think
great
about that
look.
though. What Romo just said. I mean, how in the world could think about all these games that were decided in extra innings for years and years and years and years before that, without a runner on second base. Like, I mean, you're probably talking like the difference between a playoff team and a not playoff team.
I'm one of the few that actually love that rule.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it in softball. I love it in games
Yeah.
that seem to be extremely slow.
Mhm.
I'm not saying softball's slow. It's just it's hard to score runs in softball, believe it or not. So I love the fact that they start out at second base in extra innings. It's just I don't know. It's just weird because like in Major League Baseball, you should think like these guys get paid millions of dollars to put that ball over the fence. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, that rule was like implemented probably 2002, 2003 in like travel baseball and travel softball. And, what the rule was meant to do was pretty much move the game forward so that you could get the next game behind it in.
Yep.
So you're not playing extra innings. You'd play one inning. And sometimes they would even put it to where it's a 3-2 count for every single batter. So one pitch determines the at bat. But, now it's completely changed from a 3-2 count to now just a runner at second. And the last batted out the inning before could be the runner. When I played travel baseball, you were able to pick your runner. So that rule has kind of evolved. And, they picked it up in the minors for a couple of years. And now they tried it last year in the MLB. And I think it had a lot of success. So I think we're going to see a lot of that moving forward and, the future of the MLB and extra inning rules.
The one rule I don't want to see that they talked about was making the bags bigger on the base paths. I think that's stupid. It is what it is. If you're going to do that, just shrink the diamond. You know what I mean? Instead of changing the bags, shrink the diamond. So a lot of rules we could talk about. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about conference and conferences changing and shifting. And today, we got news that the NE8 is going to look a little bit different in the beginning of 2023. A lot of stuff still kind of circulating around. We're trying to pull it down and get the facts and pull it, from top level down. So what we have here is Jefferson. The Jefferson area Falcons will no longer be part of the NE8 beginning in the fall of 2023. So they're good through this year and then all into next year, but it's the following year. So the fall, so football of 2023, they will be joining the conference that is, all right, I got to make sure I say it right this time. It is the
Chagrin
Valley Conference. Thank you. So let's list the teams that are in the Chagrin Valley Conference so everybody is on the same page here. Beechwood, Berkshire, Brooklyn, Cardinal, Chagrin Falls, Crestwood, Cuyahoga Heights, Edgewood, Geneva, Grand Valley, Harvey, Hawken, Independence, Kirtland, Lakeside, Lutheran West, Orange, Perry, Richmond Heights, Trinity, West Geauga, and Wycliffe.
Sounds like
Wow.
a great conference for YSN to start infiltrating.
I would love to. And I'll tell you why, because there's 24 teams in that conference, 25 I believe that have football, or 24 that have football teams, 25 overall. When you look at that, Jefferson, a lot of people scratching their head over this, but I think we can probably put the identifier on this pretty easy. Jefferson in the NE8 were kind of the odd man out, right? Because they were the furthest away from anybody from that standpoint. 45 minutes basically for all schools to get to Jefferson and vice versa. Now, what people don't realize is this isn't just for football. This is for your high school down to your junior varsity, down to your 8th and 7th grades, and if you have 6th and 5th grades, that is identified as well. So to be able to put transportation out every night, seemingly, to one school or another in the NE8, it was a challenge. And I don't know that that's the exact reason, but it had to be part of it. With budgets shrinking all the time, you look at this and you say, okay, well, are we really in the conference that we need to be in? And really, Jefferson, they put it up for it for as long as they could. And really, when you look at this, they will always be one of the founding fathers of the NE8. But at the time was right for them if they had an open invitation to the Chagrin Valley Conference to jump in. And they landed perfectly, I think, in conference. Richie, from your standpoint, I know we talked about this a little bit. This is a nice fit for them, right? I mean, 4 different divisions in one conference. They have an ability to grow within a conference. Then they don't have to be just, kind of that ideal player all the time.
And we talked about this geographically, like you mentioned. I think it fits them a lot better. They're up there high northeastern, up towards the lake area. So you see a lot of those teams that are closer to them. Geneva, for example, a school that's right nearby them up north. So from a money perspective and a budget perspective, it's obviously going to fit them better than traveling 40, 45 minutes, as you mentioned, to take on a Cortland and Lakeview or take on a Poland or an Isles. So, I think this fits them well. And, they've had a little bit of trouble competing in the NE8 in the past couple of years. So it's kind of a refresh for their program and for their students, and, a bright future for the players that come through every single sport of, Jefferson athletics.
Donnie, from your standpoint, this is an interesting shakeup of the NE8, one of our most dominant conferences around here. What do you think this means for the conference?
I think the conference needs to find somebody to step up and fill in that spot. And honestly, I've been telling people for a while, I think that school's Springfield. I know they're going to lose a ton of talent and everything this year with Bo Brungard and everything else, but perennially they are heads and shoulders above most people in their current conference. So I think the step up in competition, to say that you would have Springfield versus South Range every year in football, like it used to be in the ICL. Oh my gosh. I mean, that would be incredible. And then you can have another school step into the MVAC. So like, it's just different. It's different all the way around. But I think I agree with what Jefferson's doing as far as logistics go. Cause for years, Boardman was in the Federal League and we were the odd people out because we always had to travel, to Canton, and Massillon all the time. And nobody ever wanted to drive that hour to come see us. So I think somebody of that caliber of a Springfield or the size of them should step into the NE8.
See, I'm interested because I would argue that Springfield's too small, and that most of these football, because the NE8 is a football conference as it's considered, I think there'd be a lot more for the NE8 teams, the other 7 teams, to lose by losing to a Springfield than they'd ever have to gain by beating them. So I think that would be part of the argument of keeping Springfield away. And yes, I saw the comment, they're going to lose a lot. Springfield reloads. We don't
they
know
reload
how
every
they do
year.
it. It's unbelievable.
They reload every year. And I think, and honestly, if you think of the football powers that are in the NEA, you think of Poland, you think of South Range. Springfield and South Range played each other every year, and they were great.
Do.
They still do, but I mean, in football, and they were great battles. And honestly, I don't know. I think they would compete as one of the top 3 or 4 teams every year in that league.
And I think if you're a D3 school, that's something to consider, because you sit there and you go, we're never going to get any points from Springfield.
Yeah.
We're never going to get anything. The only thing that can happen is they're going to get points off of us each and every week for 7 weeks. So I think that's going to be a challenge. I'm interested. Romo is amped up for this conversation. I'm interested to get his take on this as a Hubbard boy. Talk to me about your thoughts on Jefferson leaving.
So first off, with Jefferson leaving, I mean, I was talking to Richie before I jumped on the show. Well, when I was on my way home, and I was telling him, in a way, it's like, oh my gosh, finally, because Jefferson, they had a great home field and home court advantage against the rest of the conference, because I played sports in high school at Hubbard, and no one really is amped up to go play a game after sitting on a bus for 55 minutes. So it's kind of hard to keep your head straight going up there, but I think that this new conference that they're in suits them very well, because a lot of the schools in their conference are closer to D5, low D4, high D5 type of schools. And then when you're in the NE8, I mean, Hubbard's a D3, Niles is a D3. A lot of the schools are way bigger than Jefferson on the football side. So, I mean, numbers-wise, they were already fighting an uphill battle there. But see, it is really interesting with the thought of Springfield joining the NE8, because they're competitive in every sport besides football. They're really good in baseball. They're really good in boys basketball. They're really good in girls basketball. Their girls soccer program is either in the district final or the district semifinal every year. So across the board, they're competitive in every sport. But like you said, when it comes to computer points, and I think that it would also be a way different conversation if this was had 2 years ago, when it was only 8 teams per region making the playoffs in football rather than 16. Because that's the thing. Springfield, if they get 3-4 wins in the conference, they're going to get a bunch of points.
They're in.
And I think that now when you look at it from the standpoint that we're in now with 16 teams per region, it's not as crazy of a thought, I guess, because I don't know. You know what I mean. They're a smaller school, and like you said, if you're a bigger school, you better not lose. But then again, Springfield's no walk in the park for anybody. I mean, like you said, they reload. I know they have some young studs coming up in the football program as well as the basketball.
There's only 2 other schools that I would even consider, and I know Amo said Salem or West Branch, but there's only 2 other schools that I would consider in that conversation, and that would be LeBray and Garfield.
Really?
They
what
would
about
make,
a Howland?
That's what I was thinking.
Howland is starting to become. I agree with Howland. I do agree. I think Howland though would struggle in football with those teams, and I think that would be a huge part of why Howland would not join that. But no, I agree. I like Howland. I like that too. They weren't even in my rearview mirror, and you guys brought it to the forefront. So those schools like LeBray, Garfield, we'll throw Howland in the mix because they're what are they, D2, D3 now in football?
Howland's D3, yeah.
D3 now in football?
Yeah. But D1 girls basketball.
And girls basketball, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Howland should be D2 girls basketball. They're so much better than what about what they have to face. Canfield, no. Canfield's too big. Canfield's one of those schools where they're only getting
D3?
bigger.
Yeah, they are, but I think
interesting matchups though on the football side. Canfield, South Range. You already have Canfield, Poland, and it's interesting with Howland and Canfield because a lot of the schools that are in the NE8, like Hubbard per se, they used to be in the AAC with Howland, and they used to be in the AAC with Canfield. Now on my end, I'm always a fan of new teams and playing new communities and stuff like that. So when you raise that thought, it's like, it's kind of boring. But I mean, those 2 schools are somewhat. I guess they fit in kind of at the top or just in the middle of student-wise with the rest of the NE8. So I mean, there's so many different routes you can take. Though it's wide open.
One last school that
So-
we've had conversations about already, Louisville.
You're talking logistics again.
It's a
It's
little
kind of far.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you were to put any team that is competitive balance,
Yeah.
would be ideal in Louisville.
Louisville
Because
needs to be in the AAC with Boardman, Fitch, Howland, and Harding. I'm telling you, they would be phenomenal.
They have a really good boys basketball program, and their football team last year almost beat Poland, who made a little bit of a run in the playoffs. So
So
Siggy, we haven't heard from you yet. What are your thoughts on this?
So twofold. I think Jefferson wound up where it was just because of circumstances. When the AAC was kind of falling apart, they needed somewhere to go, and it was a good dance partner at the time. And had the conference they're going into right now offered them then, they probably would have gone that route to begin with. The other thing, a couple of points here. You guys talk about Howland, Canfield. You know, I was at Beaver Local when they were in the AAC, and there's a reason why this league formed, to get away from Howland and Canfield as well. So don't lose track of that. And sure, it's a great logistical dance partner per se, and schedule wise and good competition, but there's also a reason everybody likes to be the big fish in the small pond. So don't lose track of that. Also, you know, you talk about Springfield, and we know these small schools can be cyclical quickly when it comes to competitive teams and everything. And I think I read Dana put out a tweet, I don't know, about an hour ago, with the NE8 making a statement saying that they're going to evaluate schools and they're going to keep it close to the vest on what they're going to do. And I think that's smart to say evaluate schools, because I think you have to look at their whole sports program. Mm-hmm. And the minute you offer smaller schools an invite, you always flirt with them not being able to field teams eventually down the road. So, and I say that with experience right now, because I see that in the EOAC with, you know, United and Columbiana can field a host of teams, but the smaller schools can no longer do it, and it becomes a scheduling nightmare down the road. I'm not saying right now, but down the road, that's something you have to think about, that they can offer all the sports that you're offering at these other schools as well, not just football. And people lose track of that. So it's easily forgotten about, and it's something you don't want to deal with later down the road.
See, what's interesting out of that I take is that tweet with Dana, right? And they said they were going to keep it close to the vest, and, you know, the NE8 already knows what they're going to do, because I've been in these discussions with the NE8, obviously as starting as their media partner for a few years there. Rob Conklin's a very smart guy, and there's a lot of smart people in that room with athletic directors and superintendents. They already know what they're going to do and who they're going to bring in, at least from their standpoint. So the NE8 never makes a move without knowing what they're going to do 2 steps ahead. So that's why it's so interesting to talk about and just float around some of these names and these schools, because I would be completely shocked if they already didn't discuss who they're going to bring in, who they're going to bring in as that 8th team, and why they're going to bring him in that particular situation. Nothing against Jefferson, but the NE8 always has a backup plan. You're never going to beat the conference.
Can I throw a name in too real quick?
Sure.
Of a school that logistically may make sense as well is Liberty, only because Hubbard's there, and they competed with each other as well in the AAC, and they offer other sports just like the other schools do. So that might be something to pay attention to down the road. It could be like a dark horse in that league as well.
So let me ask you this. Is this going to end up like 5 years ago, where it just started to turn into just whatever? It was the Wild West, where they started making new leagues and new conferences. People started shifting. Schools started shifting from one to the other. Are we going to see that again based on the one domino falling? Because we held it together, but now it seems like the glue's starting to get a little bit sticky, you know what I mean? And it's starting to stretch a little bit. Are we going to see this happen again? And which one of these power conferences that we have around would you anticipate benefiting the most and losing the most? Anybody?
You know, I'm going to say I don't think this will have much of an effect on conferences from a standpoint of the fact that Jefferson was that man out. Now, if it was a big school that jumped ship, say like a South Range or a Poland left the NE8, that might be a different discussion, because if a South Range or a Poland left, you have a team as Canfield who's an independent that might reach out and say, hey, let's kind of form our own conference here of some of the better teams in the Valley. But since it's Jefferson, a team that's not located around the Youngstown area, I think you're going to be able to just, patch the hole per se and find a team locally that would be able to fill that empty 8 spot.
So let's spin it back just a little bit when we were talking about Springfield. What happens to the MVAC if Springfield were to shift out, as you guys discussed? Siggy?
Well, I think you're going to see United or Columbiana stick their hand in the air quickly and say, hey, get us in there. Just only because of the issues with enrollments going on in the EOAC.
What happens to the EOAC?
I think those smaller schools just go by the way of themselves and form a better league. Now, something to keep in mind, too, is we're not talking about it. It's a completely different discussion. Pay attention to what happens to Sebring with football as well. And that could have a domino effect in that league as well, to where somebody shifts Gray Division or Scarlet Division around, and you could see United and Columbiana both going to the MVAC if somebody leaves to go to the NE8. So there's a lot of moving parts there that could happen, and I don't like to speculate, but I mean it's real. We know there's numbers issues, and it's all right there in front of us. So there's more to come in that front, which could actually be a fun discussion.
So the business side of this too, people don't realize, is the majority of these leagues and conferences, you have to have a football team to be part of them, right? Because football is the main source of revenue generation. You have to be. That's why Heartland has had such a difficult time finding a league or a conference to join, is because they don't have a football team. Now they could certainly put together one, but is it more trouble than it's worth from their standpoint? Because you're going to hear it from any school that draws. You're already starting to hear it from. I mean, you've heard it forever. Mooney and Ursuline. You're hearing it from some the talking voices, the whispers out at South Range about people transferring school to school just for one sport or for another sport. So it's interesting. If Sebring or School A, let's say in this, doesn't have a football team that they've had forever, the MVAC or whatever conference that is has a right to terminate the contract and eliminate them from being part of that conference. So then you see other schools do it. But what happens if it just becomes an underlying thing, guys? You see what I'm saying?
I mean, I think you have to look at a lot of different variables in that regard. I mean, Sebring is a dominant boys, used to be, or occasionally is a dominant boys basketball program, and they've always stuck around in a league because of that. I mean, I think I don't know if football should be the one that's driving all of those decisions. I mean, I understand it's the highest revenue, but is it the highest revenue earner for Sebring? Or is boys basketball their highest revenue? So I don't know. It's weird because, man, when I was in school, I can't remember that many leagues. There was the ICL, there was the TCL, the TAC 8, the SVC. I don't remember any others. It's just so weird. Like, there's so many leagues now, and it just seems like leagues only form to fit certain schools. Like Siggy was saying, that or it might have been Richie, the lead dogs in those groups, like they form their own leagues and everybody follows. So I don't know. It's a weird conversation, because we could actually move all the chess pieces around if we wanted to. I mean, think about the amount of schools that are similar in size that we could be playing, moving around the conference to conference. And you had mentioned earlier, like, conferences that would suffer, it would be the MVAC, because they would be plucking schools from that conference, and there's not too many. I always said, and this is before Jefferson even moved out, was Springfield should go into the NE8, and Lakeview should come into the MVAC, because Lakeview, for some reason, doesn't seem to be that dominant of a program anymore for the opponents they have to face on an annual basis. So I think they would fit perfectly in the MVAC.
Real quick, I think the one conference we're not talking about that may hold a lot of the cards is the EBC.
Yeah.
Canton South just we all know is leaving. DJ and I both are aware of something that could happen there with that conference, and that could be all on hold now based on this. So that conference may hold some cards too to what's going to happen in the future. And the thing I love about that conference is the stability of it over the years has been very stable. Outside of Louisville exiting, has been a very stable conference. All the schools are basically the same size except for Marlington, I believe is larger than the rest, and Alliance maybe a little bit bigger than some of the other ones. But demographically, they're all pretty similar. Same school size. So that's a card worth watching too.
The competition within that conference is insane. I love it.
It's phenomenal. It's such a great conference, and people don't pay near enough attention to it because it's kind of off the beaten path a little bit. But yeah, I promise you, this will not be the last domino that falls this year with conference changing and teams changing conferences. So I promise you, it is not over yet. So keep your antennas turned up, and we will keep you abreast of the situation on ysnlive.com. We got to take a break. When we come back, still a lot to talk about. Scotty, we got to get you in this conversation there, homeboy. You got the OBJ shirt on, which means we got to talk NFL football, the next round. You're going to lead us in that conversation. We come back on the YSN Power Hour.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, shop with confidence knowing we're ready to go the extra mile for you. With the largest selection of used vehicles in the Valley, backed by the Greenwood Advantage Warranty. Every one of our vehicles has undergone our own 126-point inspection, so it passes the most important inspection, yours. No other dealership has the extra inventory, gives you extra for your trade, and goes the extra mile for you. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the four words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
And we're back here on a Wednesday edition of the YSN Power Hour. Scotty Mincher joins us every Wednesday. And Scotty, it's NFL time. Talk to me about your impressions of the opening week, Super Wildcard Weekend in the NFL before we get started on the slate of games this week.
Yeah, I thought, like probably you guys do, that it was kind of a hit and miss in the NFL. We really only had two pretty good games, and then the rest were kind of stinkers in my opinion. Nothing really shocking there. I guess my impressions are, it went pretty much as I expected it to go for the most part. I think it went as expected. I knew Dallas, despite their good season and playing at home. I knew they were going to have a tough time because the Niners have been red hot. I figured the Steelers might hang around a while, and then I thought, Casey just had too much firepower for this year's Pittsburgh team. And the other games, like Las Vegas has played close games all year, but they really had no answer for Jamar Chase. I kind of saw that coming. And then the only real surprise, it wasn't Buffalo beating the Patriots. It was the way they did it in such dominating fashion. But if you'll allow me, DJ, I wanted to continue on this and kind of piggyback off of what you asked me and go into a question for you guys here. To my knowledge, everyone on this panel doesn't have a rooting interest left in these NFL playoffs. So I want to know, would anything surprise you guys at this point with the matchups we have left starting with this weekend? And how much does your interest level drop, if at all, when your team's not in there and you're just kind of watching other teams fight it out? That's what I kind of wanted to know from you guys.
Siggy, start it off.
It all depends on the matchup for me if I'm interested in to watch the game. I love football and I'll watch it. Number one, if I don't have any other playoffs going on right now this time of year, if my Steelers aren't in it, but the matchups intrigue me. I'm looking forward to Sunday evening with the Chiefs Bills matchup. Really is just something should be worth watching, and I'm interested in the Rams Bucks game. That matchup to me is, you have two complete teams, offense and defense, and it's just, other than home field, and I don't even know if that's really going to matter unless we have weather or anything like that down there. But the matchups more than anything mean it to me, and it's going to be really, really good football this weekend. It should be.
The line says it's the Bucks by 3, and Donnie, we know what that means when it's the home team in 3. It's pretty much an even game.
Even, absolutely. Every NFL game, if it starts at the 3, not that I bet NFL games or anything, or I'm a degenerate gambler, but
can't do that in Ohio.
No, Scotty, I tell you what, that's a great question because, before I saw this clip yesterday, I was only rooting for 2 quarterbacks the rest of the way, and one's Joe Burrow, which is crazy to say that I'm rooting for an AFC North quarterback. The other one's Matt Stafford because after 13 years in the league, he finally gets his first playoff win, and I have to say I'm rooting for Tom Brady right now because of what he did for that kid. Sending him to the Super Bowl after he beat brain cancer. It just tells you, like, hey, we all can hate the guy for what he does on the field or whatever, but does anybody have a bigger heart than that guy in the NFL? I mean, honest to goodness, just the pure joy he had. He has more joy doing that than I think than he does winning Super Bowls. It's crazy, but yeah, I would love to see. I would not love to see Cincinnati win a Super Bowl. I would love to see them make it to the AFC Championship game and put up a good show. Let's just say that. But I'm rooting for Matthew Stafford to win it all.
Romo, your thoughts?
Yeah, just like the rest of the guys were saying, I think any time of the year when playoff time comes around for the NFL, it's always exciting to watch. And I have no shame in saying that I'm not rooting for the Bengals, but I'm rooting for Joe Burrow just because he's an Ohio kid. And I still find it cool that his senior year of high school, he was co-D3 Player of the Year with LJ Scott from Hubbard.
Yeah.
They gave it to 2 guys that year instead of 1. And it's kind of funny because if Hubbard would have won their regional final, so they were beating Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's 2014, and almost the whole way through, and then at the end there was a fumble. It was a weird play, but Hubbard guys thought the St. V's guy was down on the punt return. but he wasn't. And then they fumbled it and picked it up and ran 70 yards for a touchdown, and Hubbard lost. If we would have won that game, we would have played Athens in the state semis with Joe Burrow. So, I mean, that would have been cool. But if there's anyone left, I think that I have no shame in saying that I'm rooting for Cincinnati.
And now that the Steelers are out, Richie can't root for them. So, Richie, who are you taking? Who are you interested in this weekend?
To answer one part of Scotty's question here, and what's my interest in this playoffs now that my Browns are out? I haven't watched a complete half of one of the games.
Me neither.
Yeah,
Me neither.
Honestly, just been busy, working, doing basketball games every single night. A lot of my attention goes to the games I'm covering, rather than games that I just kind of want to sit down and relax. I'd rather, spend an hour and a half, 2 hours preparing for a game that I'm going to call than, sitting on my couch and watching a game that, I don't really care about, to be honest. So that's to answer Scotty's question there. But, I'm with Romo here. I'm probably going to go with the Bengals to win it. As much as I like Tom Brady and everything he does off the field, I kind of want to see a new winner. And I also want to see somebody from the North represent pretty well in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with the Bengals.
Everybody loves the Ohio connection, right? Nobody ever rooted for Roethlisberger, ever.
He was on the other side of the state.
Listen,
different.
Because it's a rival.
Yeah. He was on the other side of the state.
That'd be like an Ohio State fan wanting the team up north to win the national championship.
Yeah, never. That'll never happen.
I mean, they're in the Big Ten, and you want to see a Big Ten team win it, but anybody else but them.
Agreed.
Heck, even Michigan State. Michigan and Penn State, those are the two that are not. No.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Scotty, from your standpoint, who are you looking forward to watching this weekend?
I think nobody has mentioned this game yet, but I think he's kind of a guy. He just reminds me of the little engine that could, because everybody kind of doubts him, but he somehow has like this marvelous record when he's healthy, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo going up against a guy in Aaron Rodgers, who most people believe, even with just one Super Bowl victory, some people have him as a top 3 or 5 QB all time. So that's a matchup that hasn't been talked about that I'm looking forward to. But I just can't. It's easier for me to watch the playoffs if my team didn't make it than if they would have made it and then they get beat and then you still have to watch. Like last year was tougher to me to watch the finish after the Browns lost in the divisional round than it was to watch this year's postseason. That's just my opinion. It's kind of like Pirates fans. Like if you say I'm not going to watch the playoffs, it's because the Pirates aren't in it. It's like, well, that's like every year. So it's one of those things as a Browns fan, because they haven't been in it, aside from last year, that was the best year they had in my lifetime by far. But all those other years, they haven't sniffed the playoffs. It hasn't taken away my enthusiasm for playoff football. But I wanted to say, didn't Joe Burrow, didn't he get the football stadium named after him too?
Yeah.
Did.
But yeah, I guess again, DJ, to conclude, I guess that's the game, Green Bay and San Francisco, that I'm most intrigued by, because I feel like Aaron Rodgers, clearly he's better than Jimmy G, but in my honest opinion, I think the 49ers are a better team, and I really think they're going to beat the Packers. I really have a feeling.
I'm interested. I mean, I think it's a good slate of games. I really do. 4 games up for grabs, and for a chance to get to the AFC and NFC title game. I usually don't watch necessarily either. I don't want to be that guy that kind of shows my hand. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. We're kind of busy here at the network to do some of the things that we're doing. Siggy is taking us all around the maternity ward. One last thing before we get to our Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, Scotty, since you're here today. I think you have some explaining to do with that shirt you have on today, my friend.
Yeah, and it's actually part of one of the negative sparks that I do have, and it's all the Browns fans.
Oh, he goes right to it. He did.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me at least do the promo so we get paid for it. Hang on. Wait a second. Where is it? Come on. There it is. It's the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by our friends at DickeyElectric.com, proudly powering the Valley for the last 60 years. All right, Scotty, it's all yours.
As I was saying, you could clearly see that I'm repping OBJ today. In green, people probably say that's a little bizarre. Well, I love this design, and I got it while he was a brown, but they didn't have it in brown or orange for some odd reason, so I had to go with this shade of green. But it's all the people like that now, and there's so many Browns fans that wish OBJ, that I've heard they wish him ill will, and it's like screw him, they want to see him lose. And my dad is one, he can't stand OBJ now, he wants the Rams to lose. But to me, yeah, was it a little petty to put that video up or allow it to be put up by your dad on social media? If you want to argue that, I get it. But the Browns also, it was a failure on Kevin Stefanski. It was a failure on Alex Van Pelt, that entire offensive staff, and Baker Mayfield for not getting OBJ the ball and using him to what are his strong points. So it's all the OBJ negativity I'm hearing from the Browns fans. It's not his fault that we had the season that we had. It's everybody's fault. So that's my big negative spark. The other one is just me being a pinhead. Once I finally think I'm a real mature adult, and then all of a sudden I move and I'm like, oh, I'm a real big boy now, 33 years old, got my own place, and then I don't have my social security or address down, so I had to text my mom to get it to DJ. So that made me feel like a real loser. So that's my other negative spark.
You're all right, Scotty. Don't worry. If that's the worst thing you got going for you, you're doing just fine, my friend. Doing just fine. All right, let's go. Roma, what do you have?
My very, very, very positive spark has to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Big game tonight in Chicago against the Bulls. The Eastern Conference is just all over right now. The Cavs are sitting in 4th in the conference, but they have the same amount of wins as the Bulls. So, I mean, they're sitting a game and a half out of first place. Who would have thought at this point, besides kind of Cavs fans ourselves who have kind of watched this youth develop through the past few years? And the crazy part is they're doing this without arguably 2 of their most trusted players. I guess I could take that back. They're missing Colin Sexton and Ricky Rubio, who are Rubio. I mean, he's probably the most trusted player on the team with the ball. He's a veteran, which we don't have many on our team. But I mean, everyone else has stepped up. It's been next man up, and they've been fun to watch, and they have a huge game tonight.
And I don't want to take up a lot more time, but I just want to say it's been real fun because I feel like they've kind of like they've changed the NBA back to the
Yep.
old days with all the bigs. So
They've thrown the league back 10 years.
even if you're not a big NBA fan, I feel like the Cavs are definitely worth a watch because they're like, we're just going to play with all these big men and it's going to work. And forget about the three-pointers.
There we go. And that's something that kind of haunted them last year, too, because they had a really good start last year, but then it came to the point where they were only shooting like 9-10 threes a game. And in today's NBA, you're not going to win many games scoring 85 points. But they brought in some different guys like Lauri Markkanen who can shoot. Kevin Love's starting to get his stroke back. So I think all the pieces are starting to fall together at the right time.
The NBA makes me want to vomit.
Some people are like that. Some people are like that. I don't blame you. Sometimes it's hard to watch.
It's just an ugly, not the sport. It's just like the NBA and basketball are two different things to me. I
was watching the Power Hour yesterday, and I peeked in for a second. I imagined you guys were talking about James Harden, how he was forcing into the foul calls against the Cavs yesterday. Maybe it was Running Point. It was one of the shows.
Bad.
I hopped on, but Harden, I guess he has a way of getting foul calls, and if he always gets them, he always.
The one was atrocious.
A few of them were. I mean, it's whatever that. We won the game, so it's all that matters.
Please.
Yeah, my spark. We got a double header on the network tonight in Boardman, so that's a spark. With the Boardman and Harding game getting pushed away due to the snow that we received on Monday. So now we got a double header tonight with the girls at 5:30. They bumped that game up to a varsity only, and then we'll be on the call later for the boys against Harding, and that should be a really good game when you look at two teams that are very evenly matched this season and who have some really good scores. DePietro, of course, for the Spartans, and then on the other side you got Foster and Ivory, who are two of the top scorers around this area, averaging 20 points per game. So it's going to be a fun matchup tonight in Boardman.
It's an all-timer tonight, boys, because we got 12 games on the network on a Wednesday. That typically doesn't happen.
No.
So many games got pushed from Tuesday to tonight. We've got plenty. We have boys and girls on the network tonight, Richie, as you indicated. Donnie Riccatelli, what do you have?
Listen, my positive spark's going to be would have been with Sigler on there as well, but the guys on this panel today, like I cannot say enough about. I love coming on Wednesdays, especially because I love being on the show with Scotty. Scotty he gives me this energy, and I love it. Like I feel so much better being on a show with Scotty. I'm telling you guys. But you two to the top and left of me, I'm telling you what, I have had nothing but pure, perfect comments about you guys calling games, your expertise, your professionalism, everything else. I cannot thank you enough for all the coverage that you guys have done, and I'm so excited, Richie, you're going to be there tonight to cover both of those games.
Yeah.
So let's go.
It's
I'm
future,
ready.
Man. These two
they're
are the
amazing.
future.
They're amazing. Listen, and it's funny because you throw Trey into that mix too, and I don't think people realize just how awesome you guys are. Like, where was I at? I was at the Cheney Boardman game the first time they played at Cheney, and I kept getting message after message after message. Who's on the call? Who's on the call? Who's on the call? I'm like, oh, that's Romo. I'm like, they're like, yeah, this kid's incredible. Who called the game with you? Jamie. They loved you guys, and I'm telling you, I think they follow and see which games you guys are doing specifically, just so they can tune in and listen to you guys. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for the coverage. I'm sure DJ's over the moon about you guys, but Scotty, I still need you and me to do a game together, buddy. So let's go.
I'm down. I will mess people up.
Let's go.
They get in the way of our perfection, man.
Let's go, buddy.
My hair is gonna be on fire.
I love it. I can't wait. Let's get this scheduled, Quinn Pushkar. Let's go.
I have one more thing to say before DJ closes it out. DJ and I were talking about this last night and this morning. The introduction of the huddle cameras at some of our schools. Oh my gosh, it's huge, because a lot of people don't understand
is I don't move the camera.
And you see us do the games, but you don't understand. Sometimes we're walking into these gyms half an hour before tip, and we don't even know who the players are. So Like last night I did Poland Springfield, and that was my first time doing a game with not having to do anything. And it wasn't as hard because I know Springfield, and I know a lot of the Poland kids just because they played football, and Poland's one of the bigger schools, so they get a lot of recognition, so you know who a lot of their players are. But some of these gyms you walk into, you don't know who any of the rosters are, so you're trying to move a camera like Richie per se, who does a lot of the games by himself. He's looking at the rosters, moving the camera, and fixing the scoreboard all at the same time. Oh, last night I don't know if I've had more fun, and I was by myself. I was just like, oh, this is amazing.
I don't know why Richie doesn't get the huddle cam at Canfield. That's still a mystery to me.
If anyone needs it, it's him.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah. Oh, you'll have it tonight.
That's great.
You'll have it tonight. Yeah, you'll have it tonight. Listen, you're all set up. You don't have to worry about a thing.
I'll text Muck to make sure that we have it for Canfield moving forward. I don't know why we haven't done that before.
Wait, Canfield actually has the huddle cam?
Yep.
And you haven't used it? Oh.
No.
And here's the beautiful part is we were actually approached at about noon by a company that is similar to Huddle, similar to NFHS, and looking for an opportunity, and they found us. So we might be working with them to fill up gyms in every YSN school. So they have one in their football field and they have one in their basketball court. So it's the exact same thing. We wouldn't have to touch it, and they're just a proud partner with us. So that would be a nice incentive for us to bring to them as well. So my one spark, and I don't know if this is a positive or negative, so forgive me, but the creativity that we have, and I've been getting text messages this entire time because there was some kind of announcement at 3 o'clock that was made. The creativity that we've had over the last 5 years, I'm really proud of. And, they say that imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And that's fine. But it also is the most sincere form of you're not creative. And if you're just gonna ride our coattails, that's fine. But there's other things that you don't understand on the business side of things that go into it. So I'm not saying that we're gonna sue or anything like that because we're not like that. But I would really like to, if you're out there watching, and you probably are because you like taking everything we do, make sure that you know that there's more to putting together an all-star game than just saying that you're going to have an all-star game.
Uh-huh.
There is insurance, there are fees, there are all kinds of things that you need to think of before you just throw it out there. Because you did this before, and you've wound up with egg all over your face. So make sure that when you do this, that it's organized. Because the only person or people that you're going to hurt, not you, you're going to hurt these kids. And once you hurt these kids, you got bigger problems than YSN or any other news or media outlet because your credibility goes straight to the pooper. So just remember that before you make all these announcements, just to make these announcements and make yourself feel good and legitimate, that you should probably do your homework. So that's all I'm going to say. And a little pat on the back because, yes, again, as always, I don't think it needs an announcement. We will have our all-star games starting with basketball, going into softball and baseball, and then moving towards volleyball. And we are associated with all the football games this year. So we got it all. Donnie.
Hey, real quick, kudos to Siggy and his awesome mind and getting the Big Dogs Wrestling going on because there are thousands of votes already for wrestlers. So hats off to you guys for taking that on and making it something that's going to be incredible moving forward.
Okay, it's fun, man. Wrestling Wednesday was today on Running Point, and once again, the crew killed it. So that's going to do it for our show today. Scotty, as always, we thank you for popping on and falling asleep late in the show. Always good to see you. And we will see the rest of you guys. Richie, good to see you. Romo, good to see you. And Donnie, as always, it's great to see you, my friend. We will see all of you tomorrow from 3 to 4 right here on the network. See you later.
YSN thanks you for watching